Hello and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 3, Episode 5 for Sunday, January 31st, 2016. My name is Graham Perro, and with me, as usual, are Tyler Fitch and Melissa Daphne. Melissa is still having issues with her computer, which died last week, so we have no video, but we should be able to hear her. Similar to last week, hopefully she gets that solved sometime soon. We've got a pretty good show this week. A possible unretirement, which news came down about that on Saturday, I think it was. So we'll chat about that a little bit. The NLL East is totally backwards to what everybody thought was going to happen before the season started. And we had 5 pretty darn exciting games this weekend. And at least Tyler and I managed to catch some of them. Melissa managed to catch 1 or 2, so hopefully we'll have some discussions on that as well, and then we'll get to our predictions like we always do. Starting off, a bit of an unusual situation in Vancouver, as the Stealth have reported, or at least Teddy Jenner reported, that the Stealth have added Tyler Richards to what they call the active roster evaluation list. I've never heard of this list before, but there's all kinds of stuff about the NLL that we don't know. So apparently they have 2 weeks to decide what to do with him, whether to add him to the active roster or presumably release him. So this is pretty unusual. I mean, there's been some unretirements in the NLL before, notably Gary Gate and Paul Gate have both done it. This is the first time that I know. Oh, I was going to say this is the first time that a player that had been retired for injury reasons, as opposed to just getting older, came back, but I guess that's basically what Paul Gay did. He retired because of his knee and came back a year later. I can't remember the details exactly, but the bit that concerns me about this, and Tyler, I'll get your opinions on this as well, is that Richards retired due to concussions. And as we all know, as sports fans, concussions are a big deal. And continuing to play after you've had concussions can be very dangerous, and that was the reason he retired in the first place. So it's not like he's like, well, the concussions are better now, so I can play. That's not how that works. So Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, that part scares the bejesus out of me. Hold on, hey kitty. And haven't been sitting at my desk in a couple of days, and they're like, hey, what's up? Nice to see you. So the concussions don't just fix themselves. I've been hit in the head several times, and when I'm sitting at my computer with bright monitors now, I wear my glasses and to cut down the glare, and otherwise I'll get headaches. Like you said, it doesn't just go away. It's not like, oh, my knee is better. Not even close. I don't know if T-Rich has maybe been trying to switch to one of the box goalie or hockey goalie helmets, which most people tend to wear, and if that is better for handling shots to the head. Just last night, Frankie Ciliano took a shot from Tyler Garrison square off the forehead, popped up, knocked him to the ground, but he hopped up from it, and he may have just in the moment been fine at the rest of the game, and then realized that afterwards he told his concussion. That is a story that I was told once by T-Rich, where he played the rest of the game after taking some shot up to the head, but after the game he got in the shower, started getting sick, and knew that he had received a concussion. And it sticks with you. So I'm freaking out about that. And I think it's a desperation move by the Stealth. If I was Eric Penny, like in my back of my head, I'd be like, okay, we're 3 games into the season, and then bringing back the guy who's not safe to play, and that would be mentally a blow of as far as confidence that he's the person for the job. Came out and played a pretty good game last night, but still, in your mind, you got to think, how well can I do this job with the guy coming back to take the job away from me? And so I'm worried about that part too. I don't think it's worth it for T-Rich, but we'll see what they do.
All right. Melissa, any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, just kind of echoing what you guys have already said. a concussion is a really serious thing, and they've really not fully understood that over the years. And as more and more education has come out, the fact that he's considering coming back really is kind of scary. I mean, I understand the passion and drive to want to play and be continuing to be a part of this, but at the same time, you really have to look at the longevity and really do what's best for you and your family. And if he's putting himself in harm's way just for maybe one more season, that just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't see how a helmet would change that if he's having that bad of concussions. I mean, it ended Dan Carey's career, and I can't imagine him coming back into it. And yeah, I mean, the goalie's not getting hit in the same way that a player on the floor is, but they are taking shots to the face. I mean, Colorado had lost a goalie for a occipital bone break. I mean, that's kind of random and crazy. So while I would love to see him back in net, and I'm sure Vancouver probably would too, how can you not have in the back of your head that, one more shot to the head might actually do something much, 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 much worse, which concussions can do. And I agree with what Tyler said, that, if I was Penny, I would have this in the back of my head now that, wait, you're really not, letting me find my groove, and you're going to somebody who's injured. And so, yeah, I think they just increased their goalie problem. So yeah, I don't, while I would love to see him back in net, I don't think this is a good decision at all.
Yeah, I have to agree there. It seems like you said, Tyler, like a not exactly a confidence building move for Eric Penny. It's certainly dangerous for Richards. It's really an odd thing. The only thing I can think of is Penny said, "Hey, give Tyler a call," or Tyler called up and said, "Hey, I'm available," or something like that. But any of these situations sound really unusual, and so I'm not sure what's going on there. But hopefully we hear a little bit more about that in the coming weeks. I guess we'll kind of get to this while we talk about the games, but just to go over the Eastern Division, and this is just all backwards compared to what we thought was going to happen at the beginning of the season. I'm sure there are people who looked at the New England Black Wolves or the Georgia Swarm and said these guys could really compete. And I think I said that about Georgia as a possible, I think they'll probably finish fourth kind of thing, but it's, of any team, I can see these guys doing a lot better than that. I didn't think that about New England quite as much. I certainly, now it's still early in the season, but New England is in first place in the East, then Georgia, then Rochester and Buffalo, and of course the Rock in dead last. I certainly didn't see this coming. If you had showed me this at the beginning of the season, I would have said, no, you got that backwards. So yeah, I didn't see this coming at all. How about you, Melissa?
Sorry, I'm coughing. Maybe Tyler could go.
Okay, Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, the idea that Toronto is 0-5 a month into the season seems mind-boggling. No, it's mind-boggling. If you've seen, what is that? Blades of Glory, mind-boggling. They've got all the pieces in place. The players want to play there, but also the players that get to play there are older, so maybe they're just not adjusting to the young style. Like Georgia just came out and ran on them, and it was incredible. Had to play on the road in Buffalo. They had put up a good game. New England, definitely a big shocker, but they've got new coaching that is, I think, breath of fresh air, maybe. Really creating a great environment that they want to play in. Their defense is incredible, great goalie play, and you got the MVP, who is Sean Evans, really proving that he is the MVP of the league when he just switches the team he's on entirely and still creates winning team and producing great results regardless of who's around him. So yeah, that's exactly what an MVP should do and is doing for the Black Wolves now. Georgia, fun to watch. I love to watch them run and gun. It's going to be very interesting to see if people can adjust to Georgia now that they've got some game on them, and same with New England, and or if Toronto, I guess, implodes. Not fully going to worry about that. They've being an older team, they know how to handle adverse situations, I think, and get through that. But they've dug themselves a big hole like Calgary did last year. It's not over yet, but it's going to be not as easy with two teams in the East missing the playoffs versus just one in the West. Calgary had to come back and get in front of. All right, Melissa, you threw the fit.
Yeah, no, much better. You know, it is definitely a surprise to look at the standings right now, but I think part of it is I think we may have been a little gun shy after last season when the Black Wolves came out and surprised everyone, and so I think this season we kind of were like, okay, well, we're going to go with the safe choices, which have now gotten totally turned up on their ear. But it's definitely, it's good to see some teams that have been struggling a little bit doing better this season. But, Graham, I definitely feel for you since I've been in that position the past few seasons a little too frequently. It is really hard to watch your team do so poorly or just struggle in general when you know that they can do so much better. And regardless of whether it's a close game or they're just getting their butts kicked, it's not easy to watch. It's not fun to watch. But in this league, we know the parity is so tight that it's also not a surprise completely when the league upends this way. I think it's just a bigger surprise since Toronto has been so dominant and they suddenly went to the bottom. But I'm excited to see what the rest of the season holds. It's not going to be your typical season, I don't think, which is kind of exciting since the last few have been kind of similar to one another.
Yeah, I have to say the Rocks, the way the Rock have been playing this year is, or I guess the feeling around the fan base is different from what I've seen before. In 2008, 2009, I guess it was. This is when Mike Klopfer, I don't even know how to say his name, took over as the GM and immediately traded Colin Doyle away and made some other moves that none of the fan base was particularly thrilled with. And we saw it result in the Rock at the bottom of the standings. They missed the playoffs a couple of years in a row, and that was pretty bad from the fan base. And it was particularly telling because up until then, the Rock had been really successful. I mean, they'd won a bunch of championships and been at or near the top of the standings every year since they came into existence in '99. And then suddenly they're at the bottom. But while they were doing really well, attendance was huge. They were up in the 18,000, 19,000 range almost all the time. And I remember wondering at that point, what happens when this team does go, 4-12 or has a really crappy season or two? Are we going to just kill attendance entirely, or is this kind of like the Maple Leafs, where you're going to fill the arena anyway, even if the team is doing lousy? And I guess we found that out. They did lousy for a couple of years. Attendance dropped like a rock and hasn't recovered. Well, they'd recovered a little bit, but still now, if you go to a Rock game and you get 11,000, that's pretty good. Usually it's in the 9, 10, 11,000 range, whereas 16,000 was kind of a low number for the first 5 years. Anyway, it's a different feel now because at the time it was just we have a team that's just not very good, and we're not confident that the GM can make the moves that are necessary to make it a good team again. So it's just kind of a down situation. This one's weird because we do have the pieces to make a really good team. I mean, the team from this year is not significantly different from the team from last year, which obviously did really well. Minus Josh Sanderson, add in Colin Doyle, a couple of minor pieces here and there, and it's not significantly different. But the way they're playing is huge, hugely different. That is so. I guess it's a little more optimistic in that surely they can turn it around and then we'll be good, as opposed to, well, this season is over, we'll just wait till next year or the year after. So it's a little more optimistic. And with that, I guess we can segue into the games, and we'll start with Toronto and Georgia anyway, because that was the first game that happened. And so I guess talking about being optimistic, despite the fact that your team was 0-4, this game actually didn't hurt the optimism. Surely they gave up 20 goals, and the goaltending looked shaky, but it wasn't terrible. It seems odd to say that when your team gives up 20 goals, but like I said, the goaltending was shaky, but it wasn't terrible. The defense was not great, but I didn't think they were terrible either. Mainly the 20 goals was due to the Swarm just being amazing. Their offense was just clicking like crazy. Johnny Paulus looked great. Kyle Matisse looked really good. Shane Jackson was the other one. Looked great. The Thompson brother. I mean, they were just the whole offense was just really clicking really well, and they look like they're having a lot of fun out there. And like you said, Tyler, they're a lot of fun to watch. I'd prefer to see them score 20 goals on some other team rather than mine, but so be it. The Rock offense had only scored up to 7 goals in any one of their 4 games. Suddenly exploded for 17 and managed to still lose. But the offense looked a lot better. I thought that they were still rushing a lot. It seemed that they were taking shots from bad angles when there was 5 or 6 seconds left on the shot clock. It was like you don't actually have to shoot right now. You've still got time. And some of the transition plays seem to come up, take a shot through traffic from a bad angle that you don't really have a great shot, but they take it anyway to try and, I don't know if they were trying to spark the team or what they were trying to do, but it seemed like there were a number of transition opportunities where they should have just held back and waited for the offense to get out there, and they didn't do that. But that said, they did score 17 goals, so you can't really complain too much about the offense. I guess the optimistic part of it was that they were in this game all the way through. They did have 20 goals scored against them, but they had the game tied. In fact, they were leading by 1 with about 6 minutes left in the fourth. And then Georgia came back and retook the lead. But there wasn't a time until it got to the very end, like the last minute of play in the fourth, where you thought, this is over. Even when they were down by 7, you thought, yeah, we have a chance here. They've already scored 10 or 12 goals at that point. And you thought, okay, it's not a huge chance, but there is a chance. Whereas in the previous few games, it just looked like if they keep playing like this, the game's over now, and it's the second quarter. Like this, it was a lot. It just didn't look good in the previous ones. This one, at least they were in it, so there's something optimistic to be taken out of that. So that's what I thought. Tyler, you managed to see this game?
Yeah, I was watching this game, and I enjoyed the back and forth. It was really, I mean, it's interesting to watch the Rock to see if they're going to lose again. So that was a high value thing, and it was, I mean, they were in the game all the way into the fourth quarter, and lost, I think it was 1 empty netter at the end. So it was empty netter at the end. So it was really a 2-0 game. So they were fighting back into it right till the end. It's pretty amazing to lose a game scoring 17 goals. I think you said it was the most they've ever scored in a loss on the Fact of the Day. Not much to add beyond what you said. But Georgia's onto something. We'll see how they can keep going with that.
Hey, Melissa, I didn't think you managed to see this game. Had any thoughts?
I did not, but it is kind of crazy to see how it seems like defense kind of fell apart for both sides to have such a high-scoring game. I mean, 37 goals is a lot. You have more goals for each side than we have in some games, so it's kind of strange to see such a score. But
the first half was 22 points. I was like, the first team plays defense wins, and it didn't happen at any point.
Yeah, you just don't expect that. And I know I've had that conversation with a few people that it doesn't matter how much your offense is scoring if your goalie can't stop them, or vice versa. You know, if the goalie's stopping everything and your offense can't score, it does no good. You really have to have that balance. It is good to see that Toronto was putting up some numbers, since that seems to have been an issue, but it looks like they had a third quarter slump that really kind of made all the difference.
The one quote that I saw from Colin Doyle after this game was something like, the offense stepped up in this game. Maybe the defense didn't, but we, as the offensive players, can't say anything about it because in the previous 4 games, the defense did step up and we didn't. So he sort of realized, yeah, maybe the defense didn't have their best game, but that's one bad game. We've had 4. So hopefully they can get it all together. Speaking as a Rock fan, hopefully anyway. And I am wearing a Swarm jersey today. When I put it on, I briefly thought, hey, maybe I'll do that every week, and I'll pick a team that I thought played the best that week, and I'll wear the jersey of that team. But quickly realized that's not going to work because I don't own jerseys from every team. This is actually a Minnesota Swarm jersey, not a Georgia Swarm, so it's as close as I can get. But if, for instance, I decide that Calgary or Buffalo is the best team of the week, well, too bad. I don't have a jersey for them. Or Edmonton, for that matter. Or, sorry, Saskatchewan. There it is. I knew I was going to say it at some point this episode.
See, you just need to raid my closet. That's the issue.
Yeah, you've got tons, do you not?
I do. I think I have all the current teams.
Yeah. Do you get to keep your season tickets if you buy a Buffalo jersey?
That may be an issue. I may have to buy it and then hide it somewhere. I do have a couple of orange T-shirts, but they're the Braver Than Brave for Tucker Williams. So I think the Rock people will give me a pass on those. Next game, the aforementioned Edmonton Saskatchewan Rush defeated the Colorado Mammoth, the first team to do so this season. I didn't see this one. Apparently, the broadcast had all kinds of problems, similar to the previous broadcast from Saskatoon. So hopefully they're working on that, and we'll get that solved at some point this season. Tyler, you did manage to see this one. What did you think?
Yeah, fun game to watch. The Mammoth, bad low back for the, let's see. But I remember as far as sequence of scoring, it was close the whole time. Good crowd, almost 9,000 in Saskatoon. Coming off the previous loss to Stealth, I was very worried about that. But I think everybody came back. The number was very similar to what it was before. So they're on a good plan for growing it, and winning kind of cures all ills, especially with attendance. So I'm very happy in that sense alone. I'm also happy that Colorado isn't way up on the Stealth in the standings now. Keep everything into a manageable fight for all the teams. Really makes a very interesting regular season then. Adam Jones, another great game. And I don't know, really my only, I think, point here was the attendance was just good for the Rush of Saskatchewan. That's their name. See anything else I put down? No, that's it.
I looked at the attendance for the first game, and it was I just lost it again. 9,147 for the first game in Saskatchewan, and the second one was 86-24. So they lost about 500 people. So that's pretty darn good. When you see, it might even have been Vancouver a couple of years ago when they had their first game and they sold out the place, and then they had their second game and they lost like 3,000 people or 2,000 people or something like that. So only down by 500, and you're up in the 9,000 range already. That certainly bodes well for Saskatchewan. So let's hope they can keep that up. Melissa, you didn't see this game either before we move to the next one?
No, unfortunately I didn't, and I really am detesting the fact that Fox does not have replay of the games, because I just cannot watch Friday night games, so I totally missed this one. And I'm really curious because the fact that the Rush kept Adam Jones to 1 goal really makes me wonder, was he having an off night, or were they just really doing such a good job shutting him down? And of course, to watch Mark Matthews get his 4 goals, would have liked to have seen that. So I'd really like to see how it is that the Rush put this win together. I mean, the fourth quarter definitely Colorado fell off in, but it makes me wonder, were they just completely outplayed, or did they just pull their fourth quarter slump that they like to do? So yeah.
Let's see. I didn't actually look too much at the scoring. They only scored once in the fourth quarter, Colorado that is, and that was 48 seconds in. So um, that one put them ahead 10-9, and then Saskatchewan came back. And it's this game. Yeah, Saskatchewan came back, scored three in the rest of that quarter, and won it. But that was the only lead that the Rush had in this game. Colorado took the lead, and then Saskatchewan would come back and tie it, and then Colorado took the lead, and then the Rush tied it again. And I think it was tied 7 times. But each time it was always a Colorado lead and Saskatchewan coming back. And then Saskatchewan finally broke that pattern and scored the game tying goal, and then went ahead and then scored one extra at the end. So
Yeah, there were a lot of
Colorado,
moneyballer points between this game and the Toronto game.
there certainly were. Yeah, so Colorado had the lead for almost 40 minutes in this game. Saskatchewan had the lead for under 5. But like you'll read in my Moneyballer column tomorrow, they had the last lead, which is really the only one that matters.
It's kind of interesting to see that the Rush actually had gave Colorado 5 power plays that they scored on 4 of, because that definitely can make the difference in the game. And for the Rush, it seems like of all the teams that are a little more disciplined, and so I was kind of surprised to see that they not only had so many power plays for Colorado, that Colorado was so successful on them.
All right. Next game, Buffalo, New England. And I saw parts of this one. I was actually kind of bouncing back and forth between this game and the Georgia Rochester game on Saturday. Excuse me, on Saturday night. I'd watch this game until the feed died, and then I'd switch to Georgia Rochester until I couldn't listen to Chris Driscoll anymore, and then I'd switch back to this one and keep going back and forth. So New England pulled this one off. They were actually ahead by quite a bit. It just didn't look like Buffalo was in this one very much. They had, I'm just checking it out, they had a 13-6 lead going in the early part of the fourth quarter. They scored 6 in a row and then allowed Buffalo 1 and then scored another 4 in a row. So New England was quite in control.
What was the halftime score, though? It wasn't that far apart at halftime. It was a huge third quarter for the Black Wolves.
It was 6-5 for New England at halftime, and then 11-6 after 3. So yeah, they came back with 5 goals in the third, and then another 2 starting off the fourth. And then Buffalo decided, hey, you know what, we can win this. And they made a pretty darn good run at it, because they scored 5 of the next 6 goals, including 3 in a little over a minute, from 1 from Ryan Benesh and 2 from Dane Smith. And so, I mean, 3 in a minute is pretty darn good for those guys. Unfortunately, they'd have needed to do it again, because they only had about a minute and a half left in the game, and they were still down by 3. And at that point, Evan Kirk said, no, I don't think so, that's enough. And so Buffalo never got much closer than that. But I mean, we talked before about New England winning their first 2 games last year and looking really good, and then just falling. I don't know if they fell apart, but they only won a couple of more games the rest of the season. So it kind of looked like they were for real, but then we realized, yeah, they're really not. I'm not sure we're ready to say the team is for real and will stay in first place the rest of the season, which is where they are now, as we said before. But they're a lot closer to being for real than they were last year. Obviously, like you said, Tyler, with Sean Evans taking over there as the number 1 scorer, and he's the kind of guy, as we've talked about before, who makes those around him better. And he's not just in there to score goals, he's in there to set up goals, and he's one of the best when it comes to that as well. And so when you've got guys like Kevin Crowley and Pat Saunders and the Buchanan boys and Brett Bucktooth, he's got a lot of good players to pass to. It may not be vintage Roughnecks forwards, but it's almost like he's setting those guys up to be the next Roughnecks offense. And Evan Kirk is playing unreal. He's the best goalie in the league right now. And the defense in front of him is not letting him see an awful lot of shots to begin with, so it kind of makes his job easier. So, yeah, good on you, Black Wolves. Tyler, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I was flipping back.
Uh-oh, did we lose Tyler again?
Yeah, he's definitely locked up.
Okay, we will. Okay, we'll move on to the next game, and then we can get back to what Tyler thought about the previous game. Georgia 13, Rochester 9. Considering Georgia's the team that gave up 17 goals to the Rock, and we all know how the Rock were scoring the first few games, it seems surprising that they only allowed Rochester 9 goals the next night. So good on you for the Georgia Swarm, or yeah, the Georgia Swarm defense particularly. Like I said, I saw bits of this one. Where did it go? Over here. Cody Jamieson, 1 goal, 0 assists. So I don't know how you managed to keep Jamieson down unless you just focus on keeping him down. And then, of course, Vitarelli scored a couple and Craig Point scored a couple. So you can't cover everybody. But if you're gonna take somebody and keep him to a single point, you may as well do that with Cody Jamieson. And Dawson didn't score either. Only 2 assists for Dan Dawson. Only 2 assists for Stephen Keogh. Pretty unusual for the Rochester offense, but again, the Swarm offense came to play. Randy Stotts with 8 points, Johnny Powis with 6, Miles Thompson with 5. Those guys just seem to have an awful lot of fun playing together. So, yeah, good job for the Swarm. Looks like we got Tyler back. Tyler, we've moved on to the Georgia game, but if you still have comments on the New England game before you locked up there, then you can go ahead.
Oh,
or not.
We lost him again.
He just dropped off as I said that. Okay, Melissa, do you have any thoughts on this game?
You know, I'm at the very least, I'm not surprised that Georgia won one of the 2 games this weekend, but I will admit I am a little surprised that they won both of them. I think that really speaks some volumes about this team that we might be facing this year, because usually when you have a back-to-back or a barn-to-barn, they're split. That's just the way it is. So when one team actually takes both of them, it is kind of a surprise. And the fact that they kept Rochester under 10 goals, pretty amazing. I was very surprised to see the result of the score. So while I didn't get to see it, I definitely would like to see what they did. I can't believe that Jameson was only kept to 1 goal. That's just crazy.
Tyler, it looks like you're back, and like I said, we had moved on to the Georgia game, but if you had thoughts about the New England game that you were discussing when you first dropped off.
I was. I was going to throw a lot of praise on the coaching staff over there, Jim Veltman, making great work of the American athletes he's got on defense. But I'm wondering how much, Melissa, would it cost to fly your husband out here and have him carry my laptop down a flight of stairs? Because I don't like it right now.
Well, you gotta remember, it wasn't carried; it was dropped from the top.
Yeah, that's the goal. Totally an accident, and get replaced. A lot more convenient when it's a work laptop. Unlike your situation, unfortunately. Sorry. But yay, Georgia. I don't know. Is it totally my turn to talk about the Nighthawks now?
Sure.
Okay. So I was thinking like I don't know if Matt Vince has just played a lot of games lately. He's playing summer ball, played Worlds. It's really only a week, but it adds up, and maybe he's getting fatigued. But teams are scoring goals on him this year, and it's atypical. But also the team around him is a year older. They really haven't loaded up on much youth. So not a lot of changes happening there. And very similar situation to the Rock, where maybe they have some older players who they know can play, but it's not working out for them. Stealth defense, they loaded up on older guys this year, and maybe they're just missing those half steps at times, and teams are scoring goals on them that they wouldn't expect in the past. But good on Georgia, fun to watch. Great for them to go back home with a winning record when they have their next home game, and people are like, oh yeah, the new fans aren't following the road games. I just guarantee it, because I remember when we go to Everett, and they'd be like, all right, what happened since we last saw these guys? No clue. But they'll come back, they'll hear that they won a couple games or more, and be like, all right, let's see what happens. And winning at home, or just winning in general, can make a great experience and build a fan base in a new environment. So that they're lining that up nicely.
And just to continue with your mentioning the Rock and the Nighthawks both have some more older players. The Rock is the oldest team in the league, average age of 29.1. Rochester is next at 28.8, so they're both right up there, and not surprised that the Georgia Swarm is the youngest team in the league, and they're only 25 on average. So there you got a lot of young kids on that team, and yeah, they're playing really well. One more game, and I think all three of us managed to see this one. Vancouver-Calgary. We saw, and we were wondering whether we were going to see the standard at-home stealth or the standard away stealth from the season. And it looked like we had more of the away stealth, as they were right in this game near the end, but they couldn't quite pull it off. Calgary with a 15-13 win. Garrett Billings, I thought, had a pretty good game. He scored the first goal of the season for the Stealth in the first game, and hadn't scored since. Now he missed one of the games from an injury, but he was back and scored a couple of really nice ones. A couple of vintage Billings, just fire a laser and over the goaltender's shoulder, or into whatever tiny little corner he can find. Any space that's even slightly bigger than the ball, he can get the ball in. So it did look like he was passing a little less and shooting a little more. So that was good. He had a good game. Eric Penny wasn't outstanding, but he was certainly better than the home games that we've seen. So there were certainly times that he looked really on his game. So I mean, he did give up 15, but I thought he played okay. I was going to mention that Cliff Smith was a scratch on his birthday, so that wasn't very nice. But as Tyler pointed out, he was actually more of an injury than a healthy scratch. And the only other thing I want to mention was Matt Beers, who was missed all of last year, as we've talked about before. Took a couple of, I was going to say questionable penalties. You could just call them dumb penalties, because they were just taken at really bad times. One of them was, who was it? I think it was Dixon. Had hit somebody high and the ref's arm was up. He was about to get a penalty, and Beers didn't like it and went over and slammed him into the wall. And I mean, it was completely unnecessary. Dixon was already getting a penalty. There was just no reason for it. And then they sent him to the box. And as he's walking to the box, you can see him with his arms out going, "What? What did I do? What did I do?" Like, how do you not know that that's a penalty? So, anyway, those are my thoughts. Tyler, what did you think?
Yeah, that particular penalty from Beers and one other one were terribly timed, just not under control in most sense. The one on Dixon, there wasn't a replay that showed it, but when it happened live, there's possibility that the ref was like right over his shoulder when his hand went up, so Beers didn't see the hand go up. But I think it was so obvious that he was getting a penalty, or maybe the Beers thought, well, Dixon wouldn't get called for penalty because he's Dixon, and how can an offensive player cross-check somebody? Because forwards could never do that, and they won't get a call for it. Maybe it wasn't going to get called. But it was blew a power play opportunity in the fourth quarter when the Stealth needed it more than at any point, and it really, really cost them. We talked about Cliff was injured. One thought that in my head with the whole Tyler Richards thing is there was one or two goals, I would say, in that game that I think T. Rich would have made the save on, and that would swing the whole game around. I think it was 2 goals difference in the game, and if T. Rich makes 2 saves on average that the younger Penny isn't experienced enough to make, they're tied. Or maybe if he makes it at the right time, they go the other way and get a goal, and they win the game outright. But it's a huge slippery slope that they're going down of how do you get Penny reps and build him up to make those saves in the future if he doesn't see all the shots now, right? Or are they in it to win it right now? And they brought in Hawksby, they brought in Molesky, some older players, and they brought in Billings to be the catalyst on offense, and I think they're in it to win it right now and trying to do it with a 20 or 21-year-old goalie, and it's slightly problematic. So maybe they're freaking out, saying, well, we do have to win this year because we haven't had a good winning season since moving to Langley. And we can do that with T-Rich. I don't know what to make of that anymore. We've talked about the repercussions to his health long term. Doesn't seem worth it in any way. But if the team needs to win to build its fan base, because like I said, winning cures all ills, maybe they got to win, and that's a trade-off that people are deciding upon. I don't know. It's a very tight spot for them to be in, tough spot for them to be in. Do you have any thoughts on the outcome of this game, Melissa? I know you watched it there.
I would say this was definitely an important game for both teams, and it was really hard fought, but it seemed like Vancouver kind of fell off towards the end of the fourth quarter when they needed to hit the gas pedal, and Calgary was still playing just as hard, but it was like, it wasn't, maybe, I don't know if I want to say that it looked like the Stealth gave up, but they just seemed like they were half a step behind Calgary. And the game was completely in their reach until midway through the fourth quarter. And Penny definitely let in some shots that I think maybe with some experience he would stop. But both teams were actually playing pretty good. Vancouver, I think, took maybe some penalties that they should have thought twice about. But, I mean, just these are big rivals, so you have to expect there's going to be a little bit of that no matter what. No matter how disciplined a team is, you're still going to have a little bit of emotion when you're playing your rival. So I liked what I saw from both teams, especially the first 3 quarters. I was surprised the way the fourth quarter went because it seemed so different from the previous 3. So for Calgary fans, this was definitely a good win. For Vancouver, hopefully it's a little bit of a shakeup because they completely could have won this game, and I think it was more them not winning the game than Calgary taking it away from them. I think Vancouver just took their foot off the gas when they really shouldn't have.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
All right, so 5 pretty exciting games this weekend. Let's see how we did in picking them. I got the Colorado-Saskatchewan game correct in Vancouver-Calgary, but that was it. So I went 2 for 3. Tyler got the Georgia-Toronto game right in Buffalo-New England, but that was it. So he was also 2 for 3. And Melissa got Georgia-Toronto, Colorado-Saskatchewan, and Vancouver-Calgary correct, so she was 3 and 2. And Melissa pulls away just a little bit more in our overall stats. Tyler and I are tied at 7 and 12. Melissa is 10 and 9. Has finally passed the 500 mark, so good for you, Melissa. We have 4 games next week, And as per usual, Melissa did the best the previous week, so you get to go first for next week.
Man, all the stress on me. All right, for Calgary and Rush, I'm going to go with the Rush. They just seem to be playing really strong right now, and Calgary's struggling, so that seems like the smarter choice. Although Calgary will definitely step up for that game. The games between those two teams are just so exciting. I'm really looking forward to watching that one this weekend. Hopefully, I can. Thanks, Fox Sports. New England and Buffalo is a little tougher. I think the initial gut check is to pick New England since they just beat them. But I think Buffalo is going to just come back and they're going to be mad and they're going to be a different team this weekend. And we know that they can be very hit or miss when they play. So we're going to go with Buffalo and hopefully not regret that. Georgia and Calgary, I'm going to go with Georgia. I think if Calgary wasn't playing the night before, I might be picking differently, but playing back-to-back games just takes its toll on a team. So, and the way Georgia played this weekend, they're riding a high. So let's see if they continue it. And with Colorado and Vancouver, as I said last time these two teams played in Vancouver, Colorado likes to win in stealth homes, and I don't see this weekend being any different. What about you, Tyler?
We'll go back to the beginning and get away from that one. Rush showed good form. Another home game for them to. I think hopefully the fans will maybe have some sort of rivalry with Calgary through CFL action, and so they'll come out and say, all right, they beat some random American team from Colorado last time, but now they're playing the Canadian team from 5-6 hours away. That's geographically they're kind of spread out. So that's a good rival to start with. Let's go play a good game against Calgary, and Rush will be up for it. They know how to beat them in the last few years, and they can do it again. So I got the Rush winning that one. New England at Buffalo, home and home, essentially with the week break. Great place to play in Buffalo, but I liked what I saw in New England, that they can not fear the product on the floor and hopefully block out the product in the stands and get a win there. Georgia going to Calgary, and they got to just get back to Calgary and then play. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Georgia, who will just show up and be rested and ready and waiting to unleash all their goals on Calgary as they've done with other teams. Really excited to watch that one. And then finally, Colorado and Vancouver. When they played 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, which will then be 2 weeks ago, it was so one-sided. Even if the stealth fix everything, I don't think they can fix enough. Really worried about that one, so I'm going to go ahead and pick the Colorado to win that one as well. Who do you got, Graham?
All right, Calgary, Saskatchewan. I'm going to go with you guys and pick the Saskatchewan Rush in that one. I'm looking forward to that game. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting one. Unfortunately, Melissa, I think it's on Friday night, so you may be out of luck to watch that one. Maybe that will be one of the few that's available on a replay. But yeah, I think Saskatchewan. I don't have a good feel of why they're going to win it, but I just have this feeling that they will. They seem to like playing at home, and if they get the 8,000-9,000 fans out again, making a lot of noise, that's good for the home team. So I'm going with Saskatchewan there. New England Buffalo. This one was tough. Like you said, Melissa, I can see Buffalo getting angry about losing last week and coming out and being a totally different team. But I think the Black Wolves are playing with a lot of confidence. Having played Buffalo this weekend and were able to beat them fairly easily, I'm going to go with New England on that one and say that they win the back-to-back. Georgia Calgary. I kind of thought about changing my pick while you guys were talking because you were making a lot of sense. I picked Calgary in this one. partially because I couldn't imagine them winning or losing to Saskatchewan one night and then losing again the next night. Though they did it for the first third of the season last year, why not this year? But I think they're playing at home in front of their fans, and they looked pretty fired up the other night last night I guess it was, against Vancouver.
It's easier to imagine when they're your division rival.
True enough.
I would second that.
Yep. That's definitely true. So if they can get fired up, if they can get as fired up for Georgia as they did for Vancouver, which they may not, like you said, I think they can take it. So I'm going to go with Calgary on that one. And Colorado, Vancouver, until Vancouver shows that they can play at home and be the Vancouver team that we've seen in other games, I'm going to have to go against the Stealth in their home games and go with the Mammoth on that one as well. So I guess that's about it for this episode, unless you guys have anything else that you wanted to mention.
I want to say hi, Brad Challoner. I know you're listening because you referenced the Jekyll and Hyde comments from last week during the broadcast.
All right. I guess that would be about it then. AddictedToLacrosse.com is where you want to go for all of our old shows. You can get a hold of us on Twitter at Lax Podcast or Facebook at Lax Podcast, or you can send us an email at feedback@addictedtolacrosse.com. Any of those ways will be a good way to get hold of us and give us some feedback or ask us some questions. We are also on iTunes now, so go on iTunes and do a search for Addicted to Lacrosse, and you will find us, and you can give us a 5-star review or subscribe, or preferably both. That's about it. So this has been another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week.